Working with Clint is every actor's dream.
He's an actor's director. He has a real understanding of not only the craft, but of the people.
Clint wants the truth. He wants the raw, simplest, unrehearsed version of you, and that leads to good acting.
The small-town diner buzzed with its usual morning crowd, the smell of coffee and fried eggs wafting through the air. But what started as an ordinary shift for Alisha, the hardworking waitress, would soon turn into a moment that would leave her speechless. When Clint Eastwood walked in and took a seat in her section, she couldn't have imagined how this simple interaction would end and what he would leave behind. Let us uncover what Clint Eastwood's note said and why it's still being talked about to this day. The note that changed everything. On this particular morning, Alisha's shift started like any other. The diner was bustling and she was moving from table to table, making sure everyone had what they needed. But then someone walked in who changed the energy of the room. He was tall, older, with a rugged face that seemed familiar. Alisha's eyes flicked to him for a moment before returning to her work. She didn't think much of it. The diner often had interesting characters pass through. As she reached his table, the man looked up with a knowing smile. As the man took a seat in her section, Alisha greeted him with her usual cheer. He nodded politely and placed a simple order. She noticed he didn't talk much, but there was something about his demeanor that was intriguing. He had an air of calm confidence, the kind that came from someone who had seen and done a lot in life. Still, she didn't dwell on it. There were other tables to attend to. Throughout the morning, Alisha occasionally glanced over at the man. He seemed to be taking everything in, from the clinking of dishes to the conversations around him. There was no entourage, no flashy display, just a man quietly enjoying his meal. When it came time to pay, he placed the bill on the table with a note scribbled on the back. Alisha didn't notice it at first. She was too busy clearing plates and wiping down tables. When she finally picked up the bill, her heart skipped a beat. The handwriting was neat and the words jumped out at her. It wasn't just the note itself, but what it represented. It was personal, heartfelt, and completely unexpected. Her hands trembled as she read it. Tears welled up in her eyes and she quickly brushed them away, not wanting to make a scene. She looked around, but the man was already gone, leaving behind only the note and a generous tip. Alisha took a moment to compose herself before slipping the note into her apron pocket. She couldn't stop thinking about it for the rest of her shift. The words kept replaying in her mind and she felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, disbelief, and something deeper she couldn't quite name. It wasn't just about the money or the kind words, it was about being seen, being acknowledged in a way that felt rare and profound. As the day went on, Alisha shared the story with her co-workers. Some were skeptical, others were amazed, but everyone agreed it was a moment to remember. The diner buzzed with talk about the mysterious stranger and the impact he had left behind. For Alisha, it was more than just a note. It was a reminder that even in the most ordinary of places, extraordinary things could happen. When she got home that evening, Alisha carefully unfolded the note and read it again. This time, she let herself feel the full weight of the words. They were simple but powerful, a reminder of her worth and the importance of kindness. She decided to keep the note in a safe place, not just as a memento, but as a source of inspiration. In a world that often felt indifferent, this one act of kindness had reminded her that people could surprise you in the best ways. The next morning, Alisha returned to the diner with a renewed sense of purpose. She carried the memory of that moment with her, letting it fuel her interactions with others. She realized that while she might never see the man again, his gesture had left a mark on her heart. And in turn, she hoped to pass that kindness on to others, one cup of coffee at a time. The diner's regulars began to notice a remarkable change in Alisha. She seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her step had a newfound spring, and her smile was brighter, radiating a warmth that was contagious. People couldn't help but wonder what had sparked this transformation. The story of the mysterious man who had visited the diner that fateful day quickly grew into a legend among both the staff and the regular customers. It became a story they shared with newcomers and friends, a tale that proved that even in the most ordinary of places, extraordinary moments could unfold. For Alisha, the encounter was more than just a pleasant memory. It was a turning point. The man's kind words and generous gesture had touched her deeply, leaving an imprint that she would carry for the rest of her life. His simple note, paired with a generous tip, was a reminder that there was magic in everyday connections. It wasn't about the money, It was about the meaning behind his actions. His kindness reaffirmed her belief that small gestures could have a profound impact. The man's words stayed with her, echoing in her mind during quiet moments and guiding her actions in the bustling rhythm of the diner. She often thought about what he had said, that everyone's story mattered and that a single act of kindness could ripple outwards, touching lives in ways that might never be fully known. Alisha began to see her role at the diner differently. She wasn't just serving food, she was creating a space where people felt seen and valued. She started paying closer attention to the regulars, learning their names, their favorite dishes, and even little details about their lives. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. Customers began to linger longer, enjoying the warm atmosphere that Alisha's presence fostered. Ordinary days can hold unexpected turns. A quiet stand in a room full of glamour. The room fell silent. The tension was palpable, every eye in the restaurant now focused on the scene. Miguel's bus tub slipped from his hands, crashing to the floor with a loud clatter. Thomas, who had been making his way over, froze mid-step, his face pale. He set his glass down slowly, the movement deliberate and commanding. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a brief call, he requested the ownership papers and renovation plans to be brought to him immediately. When he ended the call, he looked back at Rachel, who was now visibly shaken. "You see, Rachel," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I bought this restaurant 6 months ago. I've been sitting at this table every Friday since. Not for the luxury, not for the prestige, but because this place stood for something real. 50 years ago, the Grand Oak was a place where everyone was treated with respect, regardless of who they were or what they wore. That's what I wanted to preserve." As he spoke, Jerry, the restaurant's accountant, arrived with a leather portfolio containing the documents he'd requested. Jerry handed them over with a respectful nod, stepping back to let him continue. Rachel's face had turned pale, the weight of her actions sinking in. He gestured toward Miguel. "This young man recognized me not because of social media or status, but because he watched my films with his family. He understands something you don't. Respect isn't about appearances, it's about how we treat people." Turning back to Rachel, he offered her a choice. "You can leave and find another job where appearances are all that matter, or you can stay and learn what real hospitality means. Miguel will start training as a waiter. If you choose to stay, you'll learn from him and the rest of the staff what it means to truly serve others." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I'd like to stay and learn, sir." He nodded, finishing his whiskey and standing up. "Good choice," he said simply. As he walked out, the room erupted in quiet applause, not for the celebrity in their midst, but for the lesson in humility and respect they'd all just witnessed. In the weeks that followed, the Grand Oak underwent a subtle transformation. Rachel's attitude softened, her eagerness replaced by a genuine desire to connect with guests. She learned to notice the details that mattered, not the designer labels or flashy attitudes, but the small moments of joy and appreciation from every customer. Miguel took his training seriously, moving up from busboy to waiter with ease. His confidence grew not just in his job, but in his ability to make a difference, one guest at a time. The regulars at the Grand Oak noticed the changes too. The older couple who had watched the scene that night became even more frequent visitors, often sharing stories with Miguel about their favorite films. The staff's camaraderie strengthened, their shared respect for the restaurant's core values, creating a bond that extended beyond their shifts. Even the influencers and tech moguls began to appreciate the sincerity of the service, their superficial expectations replaced by a genuine admiration for the warmth of the place. And every Friday, Clint Eastwood could still be found at his corner table, sipping his whiskey and observing the scene. He didn't need grand gestures or loud declarations. His presence alone was a quiet reminder that respect and authenticity would always have a place at the Grand Oak. The restaurant's success wasn't just in its luxury, but in its heart, a legacy of dignity and kindness that Clint had ensured would live on. Picture this: a fancy restaurant, posh vibes everywhere, and a waitress with an attitude so loud it practically echoes off the crystal chandeliers. Now throw Clint Eastwood into the mix. You know, the guy who's all about squinty stares and iconic one-liners. But let's dive deeper, because this isn't just any night. This is the night a clueless server decides to treat Clint like some regular Joe, not realizing he's the man who owns the whole darn place. Let's talk about the food, because let's be real, that's why we're here. Clint teamed up with a chef who knows his stuff, crafting a menu that's all about local, fresh, and ridiculously delicious ingredients. We're talking ribeye steaks that are so tender they practically melt, roasted beet salads that make you forget you're eating vegetables, and desserts that could win awards. The strawberry shortcake, a masterpiece of simplicity and flavor. Every dish tells a story, a nod to the land and the history of the place, but it's not just about the food, it's the people who make the magic happen. Clint's all about fostering a team that's as passionate as he is. He's the kind of guy who'll notice the busboy with a spark in his eye and help him climb the ranks. Case in point, Miguel. This kid started out clearing tables but had big dreams of becoming a chef. Clint saw that fire and made sure Miguel got the training he needed. Fast forward, and Miguel's not just part of the team, he's a rising star in the kitchen. Picture Clint strolling into his own restaurant, casual as ever. He's not one for grand entrances or letting people know he's a big deal. He'd rather sit quietly in a corner observing, soaking it all in. But on this particular night, fate had other plans. Enter the waitress, all attitude and no clue who she's dealing with. She's dismissive, maybe even a little snarky, and completely oblivious that the guy she's brushing off is the owner of the joint. Now, Clint's not the type to throw his weight around. He's got that quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. So, he lets it slide, taking mental notes as the night goes on. It's not about revenge or proving a point, it's about understanding what's happening under the surface. Why is this server acting like this? Is it just a bad day, or is there a bigger issue at play? The restaurant changes and every dish carries a glimpse of something lasting, where every meal tells a story. When the night's over, Clint doesn't storm out or demand to see the manager. Instead, he takes his observations back to the drawing board. Maybe it's time for a staff meeting, a little refresher on what the Grand Oak stands for. It's a place of warmth, connection, and respect, values that Clint holds close to his heart. And if someone on the team isn't living up to that, well, it's an opportunity to make things right. But here's the thing about Clint, he's not just about fixing problems, he's about creating legacies. The Grand Oak isn't just a restaurant, it's a beacon of what's possible when you combine history, heart, and a little Hollywood flair. It's a place where the past meets the present, where every meal tells a story, and where even a less than perfect night can lead to something better. The Grand Oak has this magnetic charm that draws people in, not just for the food, but for the experience. Picture this: families gathering for special occasions, couples enjoying intimate dinners, and friends reconnecting over wine and laughter. It's more than just a restaurant. It's a haven, a space that feels like home no matter who you are. And Clint's fingerprints are all over it, from the ambience to the attention to detail that makes every visit memorable. Let's not forget about the behind-the-scenes magic that keeps the place running like a well-oiled machine. Clint's philosophy is simple: respect the land, honor the community, and never compromise on quality. That's why nearly every ingredient is sourced locally, from the tender steaks to the fresh herbs that garnish the plates. It's not just about supporting local farmers and reducing the carbon footprint, it's about creating a connection between the food on your plate and the land it came from. And then there's the decor. Every inch of the Grand Oak has been thoughtfully designed to blend old-world charm with modern elegance. The original wooden beams have been lovingly restored, antique furnishings add a touch of history, and the lighting creates a warm, inviting glow. It's the kind of place where you can feel the stories in the walls, where every detail whispers of a time when life was simpler, but just as full of meaning. As the years pass, the Grand Oak continues to thrive, its reputation growing as a destination for food lovers and history buffs alike. People come from miles around to experience the magic, drawn by tales of Clint's involvement and the promise of an extraordinary meal. But it's not just about the celebrity factor. At its core, the Grand Oak is about authenticity, about creating moments that matter, and about preserving a legacy that will endure for generations. Even Clint's personal connection to the place remains strong. He's a regular fixture, often seen quietly enjoying a meal in his favorite corner. He's not there to bask in the limelight, he's there to reflect, to observe, and to soak in the atmosphere he's worked so hard to create. For Clint, the Grand Oak is more than just a business venture. It's a labor of love, a tangible expression of his values and his vision. The Grand Oak stands as a shining example of what's possible when passion, purpose, and a deep respect for tradition come together. It's a place where history is celebrated, where community is nurtured, and where every guest is treated like family. Through his involvement, Clint has not only preserved a piece of Cherry Valley's heritage, but has also created a space where the simple joys of good food and good company can be savored and cherished. And there's even more to it. Beyond the day-to-day operations, the restaurant serves as a model for how businesses can integrate sustainability without sacrificing quality or experience. Clint's commitment to reducing waste and sourcing renewable energy is evident in every aspect of the Grand Oak. Solar panels discreetly tucked away power much of the restaurant, and the kitchen's zero-waste initiative ensures that even the smallest scraps find a meaningful purpose. These steps are not just good business practices, they reflect a philosophy rooted in respecting the environment and preserving it for future generations. The community connection is equally powerful. Clint has made sure that the Grand Oak is not just a restaurant, but a gathering place that gives back. Charity dinners, local fundraisers, and workshops with nearby schools have transformed it into more than a dining destination. It's become a hub of activity, fostering a deeper relationship between the restaurant and the people it serves. Local artists showcase their work in rotating exhibits, and musicians often fill the space with live performances that enhance the already rich atmosphere. It's this layered approach that makes the Grand Oak truly exceptional. From the first sip of wine to the last bite of dessert, every experience is meticulously designed to leave a lasting impression. Guests often comment not just on the food, but on the intangible sense of belonging they feel when they walk through the doors. That's the magic of Clint's vision, creating a place where everyone from the staff to the patrons feels a part of something bigger. What truly elevates the Grand Oak is the attention paid to the little moments. A guest once recalled how a waiter noticed they were celebrating a special anniversary and discreetly brought out a complimentary dessert with a handwritten note. It's these personalized touches that have transformed the restaurant from a dining spot into a memory-making destination. It's clear Clint's influence extends far beyond the menu. It's woven into the way people are treated and the memories they take home. For those who dine regularly, the Grand Oak is a second home, but for newcomers, it feels like a hidden gem. Stories of encounters with Clint himself have become part of the allure, shared in whispers or proud declarations to friends. Spotting him quietly observing the restaurant's rhythm, sometimes exchanging a few words with the staff, only adds to the magic. It's a reminder that this legendary figure isn't just an icon of the silver screen, but a man with a genuine love for creating something meaningful. Was Rachel's transformation at the Grand Oak a genuine change of heart, or just a survival tactic in a world obsessed with appearances? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more stories.